The Neil Diamond Musical, A Beautiful Noise, the uplifting true story, featuring all the songs you love from his Grammy Award-winning career. October 21st through 26th at Des Moines Civic Center. On sale at dmpa.org.
I'm Chris Williams from Cyclone Fanatic and a proud Iowa State graduate from the class of 2007. No one shows up like Iowa State fans.
And Cyclones support Cyclones on and off the field.
Your gift can provide scholarships to students, fund groundbreaking research. We can even drum up opportunities for the marching band. Visit MoveWhatMatters.com to learn how you can make an impact today.
What is up? I just can't get over this music. It's so good. Welcome to the Beat Reporters with our Beat Reporters theme song. I'm Jake Brend, Cyclone Fanatic in Iowa Everywhere, joined by Ben Hutchens with the Quad City Times and Rob Gray, who's also a Cyclone Fanatic in the Cedar Rapids Gazette. Happy bye week, gentlemen.
Happy bye week.
When it is.
Maybe we should get some Metro Boomin. Maybe he could give us some special little intro that we could use. Back in the day, couldn't you use bumper music from anything as long as it was short enough? Because I remember, like when talk radio was a heyday, like they'd be using all these songs, and they'd be some people would use them, and some people didn't like who was using them. They'd be like, "Don't use my songs." Like fair game up to blank seconds, ha ha ha, or whatever it was.
Well,
Rob, had you heard of Metro Boomin before he appeared in the Iowa State locker room last week?
I was Metro Boomin adjacent because my son is very appreciative of some of the artists he's produced, like Don Tolliver, Future. Really likes those guys. So I was this close. I was 1 degree away from Metro Boomin, to be honest.
Yeah, it's all a YouTube thing on the music. So like you can pretty much play any music you want in clips over the radio. It's just that, like when the radio feed is posted as a podcast feed or a YouTube feed, that's when you get in trouble.
It's viewed as more or less a video, even though you're only using the audio.
Yeah, I don't.
You're in a video format. Yeah.
I don't know the ins and outs, but I just know the rule: don't play copyrighted stuff, and you won't get in trouble. So. Yep. But nobody better play our Beat Reporters music because we might as well go copyright that. We've got a good day in store for you. 6 topics today ahead of the normal 5. So we're gonna continue to talk about the hot topic of playing road games at group of 5 opponents. We're gonna break down Rocco's first 4 games, the emergence of the transfer wide receivers, the Kyle Conradi injury, some Big 12 contenders and pretenders, and then we're gonna rank Iowa State's remaining schedule. And this is all courtesy of Kelderman Manufacturing. Jeff Kelderman handles all of your manufacturing needs. I don't know if anyone saw Williams and Bloom on Wednesday, but the second studio in the corner of the office is now complete. The only thing left to do is to hang the beautiful Cyclone Fanatic and Iowa Everywhere signs that were made by Kelderman himself. He does great work. He does quick work. And I was watching his YouTube page, which I would highly recommend doing if you want to get to know Jeff Kelderman better. And this was what he was doing. I'm not smart enough to know what he did to this truck, but he did something. So I'm going to read the description because I don't know exactly what it is, but he lifted some Ford F-150, and I would just recommend watching the video and getting to know Kelderman a little bit more than just the guy who sponsors the Beat Reporter podcast. He is, as Aiden knows, one of a kind. And Rob knows. Rob met him at the post Cyhawk tailgate. Indeed. At Chris Williams' tailgate. So
I think it would have been fun to hang more than 15 minutes. I think it would have been fun to hang more than 15 minutes with Jeff Kelderman there.
Yep. Kelderman Manufacturing. You can find him anywhere online and maybe set up something to go check out his place down in Oskaloosa. Shall we start with the hottest topic and maybe just bury it after this and maybe be the last ones to talk about playing road games at Group of 5 opponents until, well, maybe until 2027 when the Cyclones are scheduled to play at Bowling Green. What do you two think about these games being played?
I'll let you go first, Ben.
Okay. I've spent a lot of time looking into this week, fellas. I mean, I reported in the week, Jamie Pollard went on the coach's show and kind of explained that Iowa State can save up to $4 million by playing these road games. And that money comes from you don't have to pay an opponent to come to your place. And then when you go there, you don't have to pay another team to come to your place. The going rate is about $1.5 to $2 million. So Iowa State's looking at it as a way to save $4 million. And the thought that was hard not to have when you watch that game in Jonesboro, Arkansas is, man, how much would it cost if Iowa State would have lost this game? Because there are inherent challenges with going on the road. And I wrote about this. I tried to answer this question online with the story I wrote in the Quad City Times. I said, hey, if you can put that $4 million directly toward your NIL and your football roster, where you build a roster talented enough to outweigh any Group of 5 opponent, then by all means continue playing these games. But if you're not putting those $4 million directly into building a roster to out-talent your Arkansas States and your Toledos and your Bowling Greens, then I don't think it's worth continuing to play these games. Too big of a risk.
Yeah, I think we're going to play the game at 27. And I guess I have somewhat of a different take. Pollard has said many times that the only way Iowa State will be able to compete after this season, I believe, at the highest levels is if somehow they get some money via the state to go with the $21 million, $22 million and all that stuff. $4 million is a big chunk of that. If you could, and first of all, they shouldn't have to sell the state on that. The cost-benefit analysis, when you look at what is brought in on football weekends and basketball weekends at the University of Iowa and Iowa State is I mean, that's a no-brainer. But we also know about brains and legislatures across the country sometimes, so who knows? That said, yes, there is an inherent risk. There's no doubt about that, and we saw it come to shape in about the worst possible way. Get up 9-0. Oh, miss an extra point. Something wrong with Converti. Things just mushroom from there, right? I mean, you had complete control of the game. You were clearly the better team. But then you let a team with the dynamic quarterback who could do nothing against you the year before get going. And whether anybody showed up or not in Jonesboro, clearly they're not that excited about a top 15 opponent coming to town because that was not a full 30,000 seat stadium by any means. So the atmosphere is dead. It's a weird enough situation that it's hard for players not to react in a weird way. But I think if it becomes part of an overall selling point, and who's better at this than Jamie Pollard in terms of being fiscally creative and responsible? Some would say maybe to a fault, I suppose, sometimes, but that's also been one of the reasons why Iowa State's had such great success athletically since he's taken over, relative to the past. Well, what a selling point to be like, hey, every couple of years we're going to save this amount of money, so it's not just this and that, and then you'll continue to see how the economic benefits outweigh the risks and blah, blah, blah. So I don't know. I feel like it's trending, oddly enough, in more of these games getting played. I don't know if that will end up being the case because a lot of states are saying flat out we'll pay whatever universities want for their athletics. We've seen that in some states. And we'll see how that goes over with the public for, over long term. But I don't know. I agree with you, Ben, that it's a kind of a no-win scenario. and it is riskier than usual, but I feel like it's part of a broader picture or plan that fits Iowa State, fortunately or unfortunately, from a financial standpoint at this time.
I agree with both of you in both of the takes. But at the end of the day, I think Jamie Pollard's one job is to keep Matt Campbell happy. And we're not inside Matt Campbell's head. We're not inside those walls. But if this is something that would push Campbell to unhappiness, then you throw the financials out the window and say, we'll find a different avenue. We'll find a different way to save money. And maybe it is like in 2029 playing at Tulane. That's a good game. I think that's a way different situation than playing at Arkansas State. It's just finding those ways, keeping that balance. And if Matt Campbell isn't involved in any sort of scheduling talks right now, that has to change.
Yes.
Like that has to change immediately. We know football funds everything. Football, like, it's helping fund volleyball. It's helping fund cross country. So Campbell can't be the only voice in scheduling, but he has to play a part in it no matter what. Especially when you consider where he stands all time among Iowa State figures in general. He's probably number one.
Yeah,
it's
no doubt
a good
about
point,
that.
Jake. And hey, the other piece of this is I would hate to be an athletic director or a football coach because the rug kind of got pulled from under you. All of these games, like the Arkansas State game was scheduled 10 years ago.
Yep.
And 2 years ago, the entire college football playoff format changes. So your strategy of, hey, how can we build a schedule that helps us get to the college football playoff completely changed, in terms of what kind of games you want on there, what kind of risks you can take in the non-conference. So all of these coaches and athletic directors kind of got the rug pulled from underneath them.
Yeah, and scheduling, I don't know if in the future becomes more fluid, and that's a whole other problem because, when you're looking at these things winding their way through Congress and things like that, you're looking at, I think there are smaller programs like the Arkansas States of the world that are looking at existential crises, perhaps, and that all ties into how set in stone your schedule, all these things that are true. And I agree that was a great point that you made, Jake. And we've also, in part because we also heard Campbell, whenever he's asked about a scheduling question, he's like, well, that's probably a great question, but I don't have anything to do with scheduling. So he notes that. And I agree. That should change. Knowing Campbell, what's weird is, and I just want to ask one other thing related to this question is, how he's famously trying to put his team in positions to fail all the time in fall camp. So they've seen everything and go from there. Isn't this a classic prepare your team to fail moment, though? You have to go on the road against a team that's not a rival, against a team that's got some talent, even though they're rebuilding, because they always attract some talent, right? Butch Jones builds a roster of guys with speed, for instance. And that's a built-in obstacle that you can throw on your schedule. Now, I think heart of hearts, Matt would rather those obstacles come in a different form.
Yeah.
And be under the controllable laboratory scheme of practice or situation of practice. But I don't know. I don't think in the long run, we talked about the Ohio game, how bad that was. Well, also how good it was for how Iowa State responded, what type of team that became 2 years ago. So there's a little bit of a mixed bag, I guess, when it comes to these games. And I guess we'll see going forward, but really good points by both you guys for sure.
Yeah, we'll move on. I guess I'll add one more. Not only was this game scheduled 12 years ago, it was also scheduled before we knew the game would be played in Ireland. So this spot got inherently harder when you factor in playing 3 straight games, one of those being in Dublin. So I think if Pollard knew that in 2013, that the team would be opening the season in Ireland against K-State, which he'd have no way of knowing, that game probably wouldn't have been scheduled. So, and I don't envision any future Ireland games either, at least in the near future. So now let's talk Rocco Becht. Rocco is leading the Cyclones to a 4-0 start, and I think he's looking pretty good. How would you guys evaluate Rocco through week 4?
Well, I guess I'll lead off here. I think Rocco's been very, very solid, and I think what makes Rocco quote unquote great is the fact that he's just very, very solid. He kind of epitomizes what Iowa State's done over the last couple of years, which is find a way to win no matter what. And whether it be with his legs at the end of the UCF game, which would have been a horrible upset last year when they were, riding high 7-0, then all of a sudden 2 quick losses and all that. And obviously more than just his legs, but that came out a lot more. What did he need to do? He needed to run the ball more and be effective. had the one pick, but it's right on Ben Bramer's jersey, right on so Ben Bramer will drop that one out of 1,000 times. So, I mean, he's been really had the fumble in the Kansas State game, but he was besieged in the first half of that game. So I think Rocco's playing about as well as you could ask him to play. Certainly missed on some passes. Every quarterback does, however. And when some of the ones he's hit on, pretty good, solid intermediate throws, receivers are just flat out dropped or not been quite able to extend catches that they'd probably tell you they can make, for catches they'd tell you they should be able to make. So I think very, very solid for Rocco, and very, very solid for Rocco is elite for a college football quarterback.
To me, the thing that's jumped out the most is his interception count, only being one, and as Rob noted, right off the face mask and through the hands of Benjamin Bramer. So that was kind of the one thing that everybody talked about last year with Rocco Becht. Remember that? Man, if only Rocco would quit with these pick sixes. What could this offense be? And I think he's really, for whatever reason, maybe just balanced that out. And that's even more impressive considering what he's had to adjust this year without his top two targets. Kind of pivoting to throwing to more of the tight ends. So I've been overall largely impressed with Rocco Becht. Specifically, man, when you get him the rock, pun intended, in the final minute of the game, go out there and win it, you feel so good from a Cyclone perspective that he's going to be able to go out and do that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Can I throw one other thing into that Ben made me think of? I will say there were a couple passes in that Arkansas State game that could have brought back the old specter of the pick six.
Yeah.
There were a couple where, I don't know if one was kind of a ricochet, but one was kind of right on a guy. I don't think it came where he expected it. And I was like, oh no, not one of those again, kind of thing. But fortunately that didn't happen. But I did want to point that out. We all saw that, right?
Yeah. I think it was an out route, maybe.
Yeah. The one I believe it was trying to hit so well. If it
might have been even so well, wasn't quite where he needed to be too. I mean, that's always possible as well. But I didn't want to detract from obviously what we agree is a solid start. But I did want to mention that because I'm sure some fans had those moments, certainly on at least that one.
Yeah, and I think when you go back to the summer into fall camp, and we were talking, I think everybody thought the floor of this Iowa State football team was probably 7-8 wins, just with what they had coming back. But you thought, how could this be a special season? And it was, can Rocco take the next step? Can he go from the guy that, oh yeah, you trust him if he's got the ball at the end of the game, to can he be the best quarterback in the Big 12, or can he be the second or third best quarterback in the Big 12? And I think by all accounts so far he has. His completion percentage has gone up 7 ticks to 65%, and it probably should be 70% with all of the drops that we've seen from Dom Overby, and Eskelson had one against Iowa, and even Bramer had one last game. So I just think by all accounts Rocco has elevated every area of his game so far this season. I know he had the rough first half against K-State. He was holding on to the ball too long. But really since then, outside of 3 or 4 missed throws against Arkansas State, he has been almost a 10 out of 10 in my eyes.
19 out of 20.
Yeah, in that thing.
And that was a miscommunication on the tight end, yeah.
Yeah, I guess I'm a little bit of a harsher grader. I'd probably get a solid 9 out of 10 for Rocco at this point. I think he's got another gear. I think he's got, not that you don't think that too, Jake. I mean,
yeah, I'd go 9 out of 10 as well.
It's just, he's got a few things to work on. And that's, of course, the great thing about Rocco, the whole pro type of thing. He's always going to, that's the first thing he's going to tell you after a game. He's going to go back and look at what he's got to do better. And that's a great standard bearer for a program, and why I said he epitomizes what this team does. Just goes out and wins, whether it's ugly or not. I mean, they find a way, and I think that reflects the character of their quarterback, reflects the character of the coaching staff, and we'll see if they'll continue to do so as obviously Big 12 play begins in earnest coming Saturday.
Yeah, and one thing that could help Rocco's development would be the emergence, or maybe future emergence, of the transfer wide receivers, Xavier Townsend and Chase Sowell. Townsend had 83 yards in the win over Arkansas State, was Iowa State's leading receiver. Do you guys feel like Townsend and Sowell are right around the corner heading into Big 12 play?
Maybe a little bit more Townsend than Sowell. Is that how you feel, Rob? Yeah,
although I think Sowell is when that dam bursts, people are eyes are gonna open pretty wide. But go ahead, Ben, and I'll chime in after you.
Yeah. So Jake, I think it was 92 yards for Townsend.
92.
On
okay.
Yep.
Which is only notable because that was his career high. Some would probably point to that was the best college football game Xavier Townsend has ever played, which maybe says a little bit of something about, where he's at with his development in terms of getting right and kind of getting his feet on the ground with Iowa State. And the thing that jumped out to me about that Townsend game was maybe not as much of a 92 yards, but it was where those yards came from. On the 2-minute drive at the end of the first half, Townsend had kind of a big play to get that jump started. And then that ball down the left sideline in the final minutes of the game, that 44-yard completion, again, just a huge moment. So Iowa State's going to Townsend in some of these more high-pressure moments, and he's coming up big. He's making catches. So I think with those all things considered, probably one of Townsend's best college games he's ever played.
Yeah, good point. And I remember looking that up throughout the game too. It's like, did he have more than 92 yards against at any time with UCF? And no, not, a lot of 60s, 70s here and there. And of course, great in the return game, which we haven't seen at Iowa State. And who knows with Aiden Flores' injury and how that all shakes out. Hopefully he'll be back. But he looked a lot like Jalen Knoll, didn't he? I mean, that's what they wanted. I mean, you need a big play down the sideline. You need a big play over the middle. You need a big, really nicely skilled, over-the-shoulder catch and run. I mean, he looked the part big time. And I think Sowell, you see his extension ability. You see his ability to create space for himself. We've seen them try throws like that to him. He hasn't always corralled them and obvious, but I think he's getting more comfortable within the framework of the offense too. And we've seen him try to go for him in the end zone. I think they'd like that Jaden Higgins comp, right? Where he can be that target in the end zone. Cyclones had the luxury of having the Gabe Burkles, not last week, hopefully this week, but the Gabe Burkles and the Ben Bramers to also fill that role as big targets in the end zone. So I think Sowell's been able to ease in a little bit more, but I think the athleticism's there for him. The ability to go and get the ball in a lot of situations. So I think these guys are kind of right on time. Has been alluded to on some of the other podcasts of Williams and Bloom. I'm sure probably some of the Daily Cones too, that remember that Xavier Hutchens took a few weeks. Remember that it wasn't immediate with Jaden Higgins and all these things. And when you throw in the fact that Campbell said these guys were quote unquote banged up in fall camp and that physically and just understanding your role in the system, that starts to pop a month or so in the season. I think we're starting to see that, and I think we're going to see more. I think we're going to see more consistency from Townsend, and I think we're going to see Sowell pop sooner rather than later.
Yeah, and it can't be understated. Just missing fall camp, we don't know how much they missed, but we know that both of them were dinged up, and dinged up can mean all sorts of things.
Yes,
for Matt Campbell, but either way, they were missing out on reps. And that is a massive thing to grow separation because we know that the staff has thought equally of those two, and then Overby and Eskelson, and even now like Carson Brown hopefully emerges a little bit more as well. So to not be able to separate yourself from those guys and also just not having that chemistry yet with Rocco, it makes sense why it's taken so long, but I do think heading into Big 12 play, we're just going to see more of an outbreak. And I completely agree that the Jalen Knoll comp is there for Townsend, not in the fact that he's going to be a third-round draft pick,
sure,
or he's not going to be
1,000 yards.
Yeah, he's not going to be 1,000 yards, but in the sense of the types of routes that you need him to run in the biggest moments, he at least proved in Jonesboro he can deliver. And Sewell, it does feel like he's just one step away from maybe that barrier breaking and him catching a touchdown, him having a couple 40-yard games. I'm not expecting a 150-yard game anytime soon, but maybe Arizona is that game where he can have that moment.
One note, nobody on this podcast, I mean, certainly myself, I don't think doubts Chase Sewell's ability to catch a touchdown or to go break a big play. I think the thing I'm looking for with Sewell is the consistency.
Yep.
Can he catch that first down? That he ended up dropping that high pass that was definitely catchable, that led to Jace Gilbert dropping a punt and maybe things going haywire, or Tyler Perkins. So, that's what I'm looking for with Sewell, is the consistency rather than his ability to break a big play, which I certainly don't doubt.
Yeah, and I just think when you're looking for that red zone threat, I think that is becoming more and more important with the status of Kyle Conrarty and Jace Gilbert. We're just unsure what that looks like. Is it an injury that's fine? Is it an injury that could be a couple weeks? Could it be longer? We don't know. But what we do know that if the status of the kicker is up in the air, it changes Iowa State's approach a lot. What do you see the future, regardless of the kicking situation? What do you see Iowa State's game plan being to attack that?
Oof, that's it's a tough one. And Kyle Conrarty, look at what he's done, right? 2-game winners against Iowa, obviously needed the defensive stops in both, especially the last one too. But plus the kickoffs, touchbacks. I remember a few years ago, Iowa State struggled to get touchbacks, and it really hurt them. They gave up some big returns in games that cost them, and they've been getting a lot of touchbacks. Easier to find a guy who could just say go boom it rather than hit a 48-yard field goal. But with your top 2 kickers hurt, presumably, and as you said, Jake, who knows how long? I think it changes everything that you do. If you struggle to get touchbacks on kickoffs, you got to just go high and as deep as you can and try to cover it really well. That opens up its own can of worms in the return game. Excuse me. And then if you can't rely on a guy to hit a 54-yard field goal or a 63-yard field goal or a 48-yard field goal in crunch time, well, you're going for touchdowns all the time. And it's probably going to alter your play calling throughout an entire drive and throughout an entire game. So if Conrarty is out, even just next week, I think it causes I don't want to say it's tsunami-like, but it's not just a ripple through the game plan. I think offensively, I think they would have to make some major changes and adjustments to how they go about things, certainly on the offensive side of the ball.
Cyclone fans, it may be time to familiarize yourself with Chase Smith, the freshman kicker from North Scott, who has a career long of
Lancer.
42 in high school. Yeah, so I do think that changes things. It has to, with the way you think about the percentages and the analytics of where on the field is a good spot to kick. But I've done some digging this week on a profile I'm writing about Taylor Mauser on Friday in the Quad City Times, and it was so funny hearing about his college offense at Adams State. And guys, this ties in this week when you think about 2-point conversions and going for some things. At Adams State, I talked to one of Mouse's old coaches, Coach Taylor Eggers and Ted Eggers, and he told me they went 9 for 11 on 2-point conversions, coming out of all different formations with the field goal team. They were in the ISO reverses, they ran power counter options, coming up with creative ways to make up a 2-point conversion. He said a lot of times they went down the field and got up 8-0 because they scored a touchdown and went on a 2-point conversion. So knowing Taylor Mauser's creativity, man, if they don't think that an extra point is going to be a consistent option or something of that nature, I would totally not put it past him to break out his old Adams State days and come up with some creative 2-point conversions. Mouse was on those special teams units, guys. He was one of the most trusted players on the defensive line. line on those special teams units. I think he might have been even the long snapper on some of them. Heck, we know he used to kick extra points. So that dude is a guy with a special teams creative mind that if you give him an extra week like the Cyclones have now, what kind of creative things could he come up with for that? So that's going to be something I'm looking for, is maybe the Cyclones get a little creative with their special teams options, perhaps limited with Conradi popping up on the injury report.
Yeah, if the team is in a position where they can't rely on an extra point, that could get dicey. Like if you're at the point where you can't trust anything 35 and in, then that's a real problem. I think at this point when this Chase Smith has a career long of 42, and I understand that he was the quarterback as well, so I don't necessarily think he was like a kicking specialist when he was in high school. It sounds like he was more of an athlete who happened to be kicking, and maybe they've developed him real well already. We don't know, but if I'm just going to assume that they're not going to trust him to kick a 54-yard field goal to win the game. At least, yeah. I think, unless there's something else that they've seen in practice that we haven't. It's just, you've got to make sure that this guy can hit the field goals in the 42 and under range. And if that's all he can do, then that does change your approach in the middle of the field. That changes your approach when it's 3rd and 6. Maybe instead of going for it on 3rd and 6, you're setting up an easier 4th and 2. And that's all stuff that I'm sure the staff is obsessively discussing right now, and what that could look like. And again, this could all just come back and like, oh, Conradi's okay and he's fine. Or maybe Jace Gilbert is on track to be back in a couple weeks, and we know that he's got a history of kicking. It didn't start as a strong history, but he's done it before, and he's an upperclassman now.
I half expected to see some flyers walking around campus. Hey, did you kick in high school? Come to the Jacobson football building. Come visit us.
Hit up the intramural fields, maybe. If I'm guessing they play intramural soccer.
Oh,
I would think
they'll play intramural anything, right?
Yeah.
Everything.
Oh,
right?
yeah. So, next topic, we're going to move into some more Big 12 topics, and it's just simple contenders and pretenders. I think there's probably a clear list of 4 teams that are probably contenders, so maybe we should just leave Iowa State, Tech, Utah, and TCU out of it. If I take that list away, can you guys both give me one contender and one pretender that you guys still believe in or don't believe in?
Boy, I tell you what, I'm not trying to be the recency bias guy, but Houston looked great with, Connor Wegman, the former Texas A&M quarterback, who clearly has the talent. I mean, maybe it was just a bad fit for him at Texas A&M. He gets beat out by another phenomenal quarterback, Marcel Reed, there. So I think maybe Houston finally has a guy who scares you. So many of the past years, we've seen Houston come in here with a run-first quarterback that kind of felt like an Arkansas State type offense where they enter the game so one-dimensional. Now that Houston has a guy who can sling it, I really look at them as somebody that could be a problem.
I know Chris Williams was talking about him picking them 9th, I think, in the league. I also believe, if I look at my preseason poll, that I had him 9th. And I just thought, when you look at their defensive pedigree, like they were a really, really good defensive team last year. Just the upgrade of Connor Wegman over whoever else they've had in the past was probably going to be enough of an upgrade to get them to 6-6, 7-5. I still don't know if I'm buying them as a full-on Big 12 title contender. I look at them in the same vein as like early Leipold, Kansas, or even like 2017 Iowa State, where if you're a contender and you play them late in the season, you're not going to have fun playing them, because I do think that they're going to have a weekend in November where they create chaos in the conference.
Yeah. And again, that defense is pedigree with Willie Fritz there and obviously what he's done at other places. Remember last season, Iowa State convincing 20-0 to win, but that was a slog for that offense to put points on the board against the Houston Cougars last season. And as you mentioned, now with a quarterback who can kind of do it all, I think a lot of the guys, they had some guys with talent they'd bring in at quarterback, but they'd all be incomplete. Like one would be a really good runner and a poor thrower, one would be a really good thrower and a poor runner. Yeah, if you could somehow create a Frankenstein's monster of a Houston Cougars quarterback, they probably would have been fine. But I guess we're going to go contenders first, and then we'll probably come back with the pretender. I'm kind of torn between two because and there could be a number. I mean, does Baylor bounce back after the 2-touchdown home loss to Auburn, who looks to be pretty good? What does West Virginia beating Pitt mean? I still think they're a ways away. But the team let's talk about Arizona State. I think Arizona State remains a contender. I think you want to talk about a tough spot going to Arkansas State? What about a tough spot of going to face a team coming off a 2-win season in Mississippi State, team that's had a modicum of success, is always up there every now and then down. They're kind of one of those teams like Kentucky and the SEC that they kind of go up and down, up and down. Auburn's becoming that way, it feels like a little bit, and a handful of others. I think that, Sam Leavitt's still Sam Leavitt. You've got Tyson. That running game will get better. No one's going to give them Cam Scatterboo numbers, but I think they'll find a way. I think that defense is still solid. I think Arizona State's going to stay there and really be tough to knock out in terms of this pretender situation, which, again, I think will go down to very late in the season in the Big 12. But we could talk about BYU. I think their defense is legit. I think, talk about tumult. You lose, quote unquote, your pretty damn good starting quarterback and have to replace him. And that guy's been fine. I think there are more than a handful of people who are contenders with a little asterisk by them. And I kind of feel like that's where all these 4 or 5 possibly fellow contenders are. They got an asterisk for some reason, and we'll see how that plays out. Does Arizona fit in that category? They might have 2 asterisks, but we'll find out on Saturday.
One team that hasn't been mentioned yet, and I'll go with them, it's KU. I still think that Kansas has the offensive paralysis to contend in the Big 12. I still have questions about their defense, as I probably always will. And I still do have questions about Jalen Daniels over the course of an entire season. 1, staying healthy. 2, staying mistake-free. But I still just think that's a program that's on the rise, has a lot of resources coming in, and I think they have a really good shot of being towards the top by the end of the season. But for my pretender, I'm going Baylor. I can't buy them. I buy their offense. I buy Sawyer Robertson. I buy Bryson Washington. I buy Josh Cameron, Tiggs, the tight end, Kobe Prentice. Like they've got the skill positions down. My problem with them, their defense and their supposed defensive-minded coach, Dave Aranda. I do not trust them over the course of the season. I think Arizona State's going to go into Waco, beat them this week, and, not put an end to their season, but put them in a pretty deep hole that I don't think they're going to be able to dig out of.
Guys, do you hear that? Nobody's talking about Colorado. For the first time in 2 years, nobody's talking about Colorado.
They're the pretenders of all pretenders, I think, right now.
Colorado is my pretender. You know how bad? 2 losses it must take to have everybody stop talking about Colorado, and they're my pretender. They just got pushed around in 2 losses on the offensive line and on the defensive line. We knew that about Colorado. That was the big fear going into all of these seasons. And in the past couple of years, they've had a Heisman Trophy winner and an NFL quarterback to make up for that. And they just don't have that this year. They're still, I think, looking for a solid answer at quarterback. So I don't think Colorado is going to contend for the Big 12 this year.
I agree with both you guys to an extent, but most with Ben, although I will say that I think Baylor was broadly more considered to be a contender coming into the season than Colorado, given what Colorado lost. But at the same time, they're the epitome of a pretender. They're doing what, and doing what they have to do, which is mass transfers year after year, and hope that they play really well. Last year, for the most part, they played really well. This year, as you said, we're seeing a full transfer offensive line getting pushed around on a weekly basis, and that does not bode well when you're breaking in a new starting quarterback and all that stuff. So I'm going to throw another name in there just because of its topical interest. I think in addition to BYU perhaps being the most intriguing contender/pretender, yes, I think Arizona is right there with them. I think Fafita is the real deal. I think they're finding ways to move him, have him move things with his legs that are really good when you don't have McMillan out there and all that stuff. But I still think that's a team that, I've been impressed with what they've done to get to 3-0. I think their defense has been solid, and I think it will continue to be pretty solid. But I also think that team the wheels could fall off. I mean, I don't know that the depth is there for Arizona yet. In fact, I doubt that it is. And we'll see over the course of a rigorous, physical Big 12 season how that hangs up. But right now, it seems like they're pretty fresh. So I think they'll put up a good fight in the whiteout in Ames on Saturday night. But again, I think Arizona could. They have the potential to almost feel like the Arizona State of last year, but I think they also could very much fizzle out. And I think they're on the way back up after really falling down after Fish left. But I've got them on pretender alert right now to go along with the other teams.
If you've ever listened to me on Bigger Than 12, you'll know that I'm not a Brent Brennan guy. I'll give them credit. I think they've been better so far this season than I expected, but I'm with you, Rob. I think they fizzle out, and I think that could start with a double-digit loss in Ames next Saturday.
We shall see.
And speaking of next Saturday, 8 games to go, and Ben thought it'd be a great idea, and I agree, to rank the remaining games. So should we do this together? Like, come up with our list combined between our 3 thoughts, and maybe just start with
little mild debate, back and forth to slot them.
Since I already have my ranking,
what should be our criteria, Ben? Or what is your criteria?
My criteria was just right here, just boom, boom, boom.
So is it game you're most excited for? Toughest game?
I ranked in order of difficulty from hardest.
Okay. Yeah. So we'll all do that as well. And you lead us off.
Yeah, so while you guys get some time to think, I thought this was such a handy exercise because as we saw with Arizona State, the Big 12 changes so much from what we thought we knew entering the game. And it is a good exercise to go through as we have a little bit of a bye week because Iowa State's schedule is a lot less difficult than I thought it was going to be entering this game. And I say that because the only other 2 teams ranked in the AP poll this week are number 16 Utah and number 17 Texas Tech. Iowa State doesn't play either of those teams. Mm-hmm. Those games, you weren't really necessarily scared of a Utah matchup or a Texas Tech matchup. You didn't know what you had. But now it's looking like a good thing for Iowa State that it doesn't have to play those 2 teams. So I can get us started, and I'll tell you, I think the hardest game is Saturday, November 8th at TCU. That game looks like a monster.
Yeah, 100% in agreement here. And it's funny, we didn't really mention TCU in our contender-pretender. I think they're as close to being a contender. They're number 1 outside of that Big 4, and they might find a way into it. Tough place to play. They're re-energized. I think that team has shown it's legit. To go in and fall behind at North Carolina's not going to be very good this year. We know that, but to go in and fall behind and see all that juice with the powder blue crowd and to just snatch it away from them and step on their necks there. That's impressive. Even if you're playing a not a very good Tar Heels team, I think that, as you said, Ben, that's going to be a monster. Obviously with some tough ones at home before that, but I circled that immediately as well.
Yeah, it's number 1. And by the way, Rob, I did throw them in that top 4 contenders.
Thank you. Sorry.
So I think they're full-fledged contenders. They played in a national championship game a couple of years ago, and I think they've definitely got what it takes on the offensive side of the ball. It's just can that defense follow through and be middle of the pack or better in the conference? But no doubt in my mind, this is number one. What's your second toughest game, Ben? I think this is maybe the toughest of all of them.
Sure. Here's where things get a little bit more muddled. I think we all immediately went to the TCU, but my next toughest game was going to be versus Kansas. And I think that's just because, Kansas has, maybe it's a little bit in my mind from last year, what the Jayhawks did to Iowa State. I think this will be a completely different matchup in terms of what Iowa State will potentially bring into that game on the defensive side of the ball. Last year in Arrowhead, man, that wasn't even a true reflection of what Iowa State could be or was. But I do think that if Jalen Daniels, as Jake pointed out, can stay healthy, then that's going to be a tough game for the Cyclones.
I completely agree. I was down to this one or Cincinnati as the toughest games, and it's just Leipold's had Campbell's number. For whatever reason you can draw it out, I think the idea that Daniels has owned Iowa State is a little misleading. Daniels is 2-0 against Iowa State, but the first time he beat Iowa State, that game was, I believe, 10-7, and Iowa State missed 4 field goals.
Yeah.
And then when they won in Jack Trice Stadium a couple of years ago, Daniels didn't actually play. It was Bean. Mm-hmm. But for whatever reason, the last 2 games that they've played, Lance Leipold has picked apart Iowa State's defense. And last year, injuries did not help. A couple of years ago, I thought Kotelnicki, when the now Penn State offensive coordinator, when he was at Kansas, I just thought he crafted one of the best offensive game plans I've ever seen coming into Jack Trice Stadium, and that is 100% reasonable to be in the back of people's minds on how will Iowa State match up with this Kansas team that looks to be dynamic on offense once again.
Well, I mostly agree, but I'm going to go with Jake's second pick at Cincinnati because, I think the Bearcats are certainly better. I think the key will be how well they can defend. I think, we got Tyson Byte over there, of course, longtime Matt Campbell assistant. Sorsby's the real deal. I think he's one of the better quarterbacks in the Big 12. I think they've got the skill guys. Again, early in the season, do you get the win over Arizona as expected? In the whiteout this week, boom, then just right away you head to Cincinnati where they're feeling some juice. They had the tough loss early on, but they were right there. I just think the road is going to be even though Iowa State's done well home and away the last couple of years, obviously you don't win 15 games out of your first 18 or last 18 if you don't do that. I just think that's going to be, they're going to be up for that. It wasn't that long ago that Cincinnati made the college football playoff. I mean, it seems like it was because it was Luke Fickell and he's been at Wisconsin for a while, but I mean, it's a pretty proud program, and I think they've got the pieces in place to be the type of team that could knock Iowa State off its game. I mean, who did we expect Iowa State's first 2 losses to be who it was last year? I mean, I just feel like it's going to be a tough spot for the Cyclones on October 4th again, that early in the season. But I completely agree with all your points about Kansas. So they have had the Cyclones number, and whether it be Daniels or Bean at quarterback, I mean, just picked apart that defense, which is so rare to see on a year by year basis.
It's interesting to me that both of you guys went with Cincinnati next. I have them a little bit further down in my rankings, but you're right. I mean, it is a road game. Brendan Sorsby, one of the better quarterbacks, I think, in the Big 12. My next 2 were BYU and Arizona State. I kind of lumped those games together because that's what definitely drew your eye when this schedule got revealed as 2 of the teams in that tie for the Big 12 championship last year. And of course, the rematch. Bear Bachmeier, man, I really don't know what to make of BYU at this point. I don't think it's been the disaster scenario that I thought could have happened with a quarterback leaving town right as camp gets underway. But I think BYU could be a problem. One of the most talented rosters probably overall, with a capable quarterback now. And I'm not writing Arizona State off yet. I kind of lumped those games together. What do you guys feel about that?
Yeah, those would have been my 4 and 5, and I probably would go Arizona State first, BYU second. And I'm still not a total believer in BYU. I think their defense is awesome. They haven't played anybody with a pulse yet, and I need to see that first. They're in a tough spot this week at Eastern Carolina. I still think, even though Arizona State had that loss against Mississippi State, they are full-fledged contenders, and that will be the type of game where Iowa State's got to have like a B+, A- game to win even at home. I still think Sam Leavitt, Jordan Tyson are that good.
Yeah, I refuse to write off. Sorry, Rob. I refuse to write off any of these teams that lost a non-conference game because who cares? In the Big 12 championship, your path to the college football playoff is by going through Arlington and winning this league. So I don't think that the Arizona State game at Mississippi State is going to be something that really comes up or factors in to these teams' desire to go out and win a Big 12 championship.
No, I completely agree with that too, and I also agree with where these games are slotted. I don't know why. I just have a feeling that they're going to do better against Kansas this year. So I maybe would have had these guys 3 and 4 with Kansas 5, but all of them like really close. I think BYU's defense is a problem, and I don't know, man. Satake, his dance moves that guy's got it going on in Provo. He's got. There's a lot of belief in that program, and if they can keep rolling, like you said, they're in a weird road spot like Iowa State was last season, Jake. We'll see. But Arizona State, like you said, full-fledged contender. I think you guys are right. Kansas will be a huge bear, but I kind of have those three kind of in the same mass too. So I think we're pretty much on the same page.
So then, Ben, after that, was it Cincinnati for you?
Yeah. I think I got a little bit out of order here. I had at Cincinnati after Arizona State, and then Arizona was next. I kind of view the versus Arizona game and the at Cincinnati game in the same tier of difficulty.
And that's fitting because they're back to back. I know we already talked a little bit about Arizona, but that's a game where they're playing well enough that you're going to have to play well to win. And I know that's cliche, but I didn't necessarily think that coming into the year. I kind of viewed them in the same light as Houston last season, and I just think they're a tier above that. So I think it's right to have that game ahead of at Colorado, which I'm guessing would be your 7th toughest game remaining, Ben.
Because we all know what the 8th toughest game is. At Colorado is the second easiest game. There's some locker room, there's some bulletin board material for the Buffaloes. Second easiest game, followed by the Oklahoma State game, would be the last. Is there any sense in switching those two for you guys?
I don't think so.
I don't think it's even close at this point. Factor in the altitude, all the things that make Colorado, on a perennial basis, a tough place to play. But man, they're really reeling right now. And there's not to say that they can't put it together a little bit, but when you have so many new guys and it can go south in a hurry, and I'm in full agreement that even though those are both road games, that those should be the two easiest, certainly on paper, for Iowa State, because Ben, I know you're very, very, very familiar with Oklahoma State, and it must be somewhat shocking to kind of see where they're at right now in the aftermath of the Oregon game and in the prelude to the Oregon game and all that war of words stuff too.
It is, Rob. I don't even know what to say. I just think Iowa State I think Oklahoma State was behind on the NIL, and that was okay for the first couple years as they still had a roster talented enough. And then as Ollie Gordon leaves and Spencer Sanders leaves, and Oklahoma State was left with the consequences for not being super NIL ready. And here they are with a roster that's just less talented. Now, the scenario that I can't get out of my head, fellas, is Saturday, November 29th, down there in Stillwater. What if this is Mike Gundy's send-off game? What if at this point, everybody's agreed, hey, this is going to be it. Mike, your name's going on the field. This is going to be a celebration. Then I think that game gets a tough spot. I think that game becomes suddenly a lot more difficult as Mike Gundy, with maybe nothing left to play for other than pride. That's not a situation I'd like to be going to as a road team. Thanksgiving weekend, you're trying to potentially lock up one more win to get to Arlington. That could be tough.
I couldn't agree more, Ben. Like that. It's got the potential to be a tough spot. I just don't know about a tough team. And that's where you would hope the maturity of Rocco-backed Matt Campbell would outweigh anything else. But yeah, it's always tough when you've got that. I don't know what the proper term would be, but the send-off theory, I guess, might be the best way to put it. But I would still put Colorado ahead of that, just based off of talent alone and the potential for Colorado to turn it around a little bit like they did in the middle of last season. I don't see it happening.
Jake, that would be Mike Gundy's revenge for 2011 if he's able to dash Iowa State's Big 12 championship hopes.
He doesn't have Jeff Woody, though. He doesn't have Jeff Woody. No, I find that hasn't it soured enough though that Gundy, if he keeps losing, he might not even make it to the end of the season.
Yeah, that's what my next question was like, does he make it to the end? Just in this era, you want to get so far ahead and be the first to hire a coach and stuff like that. So I was wondering that as well, if that send-off could happen potentially earlier. But I know he's a legend. I know.
Yes, he's done a ton for them.
That's not necessarily how you treat a legend, but it could be necessary at this point.
For what it's worth, that's my feel on it as well. That Mike Gundy is not going to get fired in the middle of the season. I don't think this is going to be a deal where Oklahoma State, pushes out the most powerful man in the program, and it's a conversation for a different beat reporter's show. But there's a lot of administrative things going on right now at Oklahoma State, where they have a new president, an athletic director working on a contract that feels not super long term. So I don't think Mike Gundy's going to get pushed out in the middle of the season. That's just not how that's going to go down, in my opinion, with somebody who's been there for that long and whose name is going to go on that field one day.
Yeah, I just remember last year there was that whole deal where they were trying to, it looked like it could be the end. And there was that, as you said, there's a lot of moving parts that and culture situations that you understand a lot better than we do, Ben. But it just seems like there's been a lot of troubled waters there for a while.
Yeah, so, and then it always feels like Gundy will go out and win 9 games and make a bowl, but maybe that streak is over.
He's had an incredible run, no doubt about that.
We're going to get out of here, but first, if you haven't yet, it's a whiteout at Jack Trice Stadium next Saturday. I know not everybody has white Iowa State gear, so if you want to avoid wearing a plain Hanes white t-shirt, you should hit up CycloneFanaticShop.com, and these are just a few of the options that you can select there. I was looking at the forecast. It looks like, as of being 10 days out, it looks like a high of like 82. So that's, by the time it's nighttime, it's probably going to be perfect light hoodie weather. That's what we've got at the CycloneFanaticShop.com. So go and get your stuff ordered by the weekend to ensure that it is delivered to you before the game comes next Saturday. So that'll be it for us on the Beat Reporters today. It's been a fun bye-week show. We'll have a lot to talk about next week. We'll talk to Matt Campbell for the first time in what will feel like a month. So I'm interested to do that, and we'll have some good topics coming your way right here in the Northwest Bank Studios. Thank you for listening to the Beat Reporters, presented by Kelderman Manufacturing.